we need to look at citizen sciences and look at them from a certain halfway professionalism by somehow building capacity to do really good science. And I think this is very important. But also we need to have the other side, this inclusivity with traditional knowledge systems. And you see, next please, you will see these tribal people in the Dang forest where there haven't been crocodiles for 100 years, still venerating a crocodile god there, which they knew used to exist over there in those rivers. So how are we going to integrate the traditional knowledge systems here? I'm going to go through very quickly some of the people who I was personally associated with. So the next slide has my mentor standing in Pune on Bangagan Road. That is Dr. Salim Ali, who's photographing buyers at the field next to my house. The house in the back was where I grew up. And my Salim Bhai used to come every weekend and take me for a ride on his BMW motorcycle. So for me, the joy of Salim Bhai arriving on a weekend was I would wait for the sound of that BMW so that I could ask him, Salim Uncle, please take me for a ride today. And he would take me to Kakal, drive over those corners very fast because he knew I liked the speed of it. Next, please. Salim Bhai was an incredible traveler and an incredible field biologist. Whereas his cousin, Humayun Abdul Ali, with whom we very often did get along to help, was an incredible bird taxonomist. I mean, he could spend the whole day sitting with one tray of birds at the PNHS and make me sit with him and make me do measurements of birds. Frankly, I loved much more going out with him to Borivali National Park in those days. And what my task in that was, every time a trucker had left a stone in the middle of the road, I would have to get down and put the stone on the side of the road. So that was Humayun Abdul Ali's passion, that he would clear up the road in Borivali National Park. Next, please. You find so many of these people were associated with PNHS, and they were such incredible people. The person you see in the middle with Salim Ali on the left side is Dinsha Pandey. He was a business tycoon, but he had an enormous knowledge of mammal behavior. And it was incredible to be with him in the field. I mean, he would tell you, just keep quiet here. That wild boar that you saw going that way will come out from here. And sure enough, in a few minutes, the wild boar will come out on a completely unexpected place. And then there is C.V. Kulkarni, who was with us for many, many years at the PNHS. He was a grand old fisheries man of India, incredible person. Got the Tatas to breed Bashir, which was nearly getting extinct. And today we still have that Bashir breeding center. And I say a lot of the technology which my friend got from there was part of C.V. Kulkarni's enormous knowledge of not just the fish as a fish, but as a conservationist. Next, please. A very close college friend of mine. This is Divya Bhanu Chawda. Divya Bhanu is, well, he's a senior executive, was senior executive in Taj for years. But he was also, of course, he came from one of these princely families. And he is one of the best historians for wildlife in our country today, right? Cheetah, lion, so many other things. And has an incredible knowledge of conservation. So he was with the WWF for many years. Next, please. I've selected many of these as at random because these were the ones who were closest to me for many years. This is Rishad Nauroji, who wrote this huge book on raptor taxonomy, raptor breeding, raptor behavior. So, incredible person to be with again in the field, except that you may be forced to climb a very rickety bamboo pylon to be able to test their raptor's nest. Next, please. One of my mentors is sitting here with Dr. Salim Ali. He's no more today. He's Maharaja of Ansta. Started life as a shikari, of course, but became an incredibly strong partner. He converted his own personal forest into a national park at huge cost, of course, to himself, and did incredible work on animals which were less known. Like looking with me in the forest for a rusty spotted cat was like looking for a needle in a haystack. And Maharaj was fantastic knowledge of biology and the species that he had, which seemed to be some part of his own whole personality. So that was Maharaja of Vasda. Next, please. One more mentor of mine, S.P. Godrej. Saurabhji always had a little black tag on his shoulder, and you would ask, Saurabhji, what is this for? You know, today's one is about tigers. Tigers. And sometimes he would say it is about a wetland, and sometimes he would say. But imagine this one businessman could set up the whole of WWF and not just fund it, but drive it. And I think this is what was very important. And Saurabhji, of course, here you see this in this picture, is one of the schools that I used to do environment education in, thrilling the local kids there with his half Gujarati, half Marathi, half English talk about tigers. And he could, again, was one of these people who could fascinate people. I can't stop here without saying that citizen science has been about institutions as well. Next, please. And you have these three large earlier ones, the World Wildlife Fund, which was, of course, a Godrej initiative. You have BNHS, so often supported by a whole lot of people who loved the BNHS. It became, you know, many of us BNHS people don't even say Bombay Naturalistic Society, we just say the society. And the society means a lot to us. It has given us so much, and I personally owe a lot to the BNHS and to Salim Ali, who I used to go and meet there even as a schoolboy. Then there is the Wildlife Institute of India. So it's not always these NGOs, but the WII has done so much incredible work for our country, very often left unrecorded. And I think the two very great people in the Wildlife Institute, who I personally knew so closely, were Rogers and Howard, who wrote Planning a Protected Area Network for India at a period of time where in 1988, this was completely new conservation science. We preceded most other countries in this kind of a concept of having protected areas, national park sanctuaries in those days, now of course conservation and community reserves, but also the idea of having corridors, something which was very little talked about in 1988 until Rogers brought up Planning a Protected Area Network for India, which at that time was something like 27 protected areas. Today we are talking about 900. We have done something which in India which is very incredible, considering this huge pressure on our land use, considering the number of people, considering the fact that we need economic growth and development, we still have been able to do this. And it's an enormous, enormous achievement. I think a lot of that achievement goes to our professional foresters. And the forest department has produced people who are completely involved with conservation. I can name a whole lot of them, but I don't want to do that now. But they were all incredible human beings who went beyond the call of their duty as foresters to protect wildlife. The next slide, please. And you have this beautiful place called Sakon. Sakon, in fact, was Salim Ali's dream. He was always worried that his scientists would have to go from one project to another, and the scientists were always worried, will I get another project? Right? And that's why Salim Bhai set up this very new institution at that time of Sakon, Salim Ali Conservation, which Salim Bhai did not want it to be named after him, and he had told me so. But after him, we had to call it Sakon. And they've done so much work in the country. It's quite incredible that we have got scientists like this, not just in ZSI, PSI, but in these kind of organizations. And there are a whole plethora of newer organizations like that. Next, please. So my last slide, again, is an evocative thing for me. And this is MC Mehta, who really brought this whole business of environment into the formal educational sector by putting up a PIL against the Ministry of HRD and the Ministry of MOEF in those days. Actually a very early part when there was no CC attached to this. And there he brought in the concept of what today has become Aichi Target 1, which is SEPA, Communication, Education, Public Awareness. And this is really, the country owes this to this one person, this great jurist called MC Mehta. And he is, again, an incredible human being. We often talked about this, and when it really came about, we realized how important it has been for this country. In my last slide, I give you my hero. Next, please. Who is Salim Ali. His conservation concepts were far ahead of his times. And that is something that doesn't come out strongly in many of the things that we know of Salim Ali. But we know a lot about Salim Ali in terms of very, very interesting things about his character. He was a tremendous humorist. He had a quip to say about everything, including science. And I remember once, before I end just now, taking him once, coaxing him to come and speak to a set of administrators in Bombay. And they were asking him some questions. He talked for about 5-7 minutes. He was getting very old by then. And then somebody asked him that, sir, why do these birds prefer to eat crops and not out in the forest or the grassland? And he turned to me, he couldn't hear too well, and he said, is that what he's asking me? And he said, but what do I say? I said, sir, you are the greatest scientist in ornithology. Why ask me? So he said, I really don't know, So then he stood up and he said, where are my friends? To answer that question, I shall have to go out and ask the birds. And he got up and walked off the stage. This was Salim Ali for you. He was a great, great human being and a great lover of conservation and conservation science. And he will always be a mentor for you. Thank you very much today. What is the outcome of research? And I put this to you guys. My talk is over. What is research, really? Because research, without two things, without conservation action and without public awareness, will not take us anywhere. And I'd like to leave today by keeping this thought in your minds at ZSI, that what we must do is put conservation action and a great level of public awareness. And we have to integrate this into all the research that the ZSI has done so wonderfully for 200 years. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for informing us about the citizen science, its origin, history, and involvement of our own indigenous people in citizen science long back. This is something new which I was not aware of, and with beautiful pictures. I really appreciate you, sir. Madam, Director Madam, would you like to? Okay, I think Madam is not there, so we will move on to next our speaker. So our next speaker is.
We keep the forum open if anybody has
yes.
to ask to Rucha. I mean, this is an opportunity to interact with him.
Yes.
So we often not getting on this kind of a platform because any youngster, any citizen scientist, any biologist want to have anything to know from Dr. Varucha. Just we can take 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah, 2-3 questions we will take, and then you can keep in the Dropbox, and then we will answer the questions, queries.
Yes.
If any questions are there, the forum is open for questions.
The people can always contact me for
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir. So, sir, we will move towards our next speaker. So, the next speaker is Mr. Samuel Pechau. He is an IFS officer from Kerala Cadre of batch 2013. He served as Divisional Forest Officer, Palakkad, Kannur, Wildlife Warden of Silent Valley National Park. He has done his MSc in Wildlife Sciences from WII Dehradun, and recently he has completed his MPhil in Conservation Leadership from Cambridge University. So over to you, sir.
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, audible.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. First of all, I'd like to convey my regards to ZSI WRC Pune for giving me this opportunity. I feel privileged to be in the presence of Dr. Banerjee, Director of ZSI, and one of my business mentors who I never mentioned because I was satisfied. I get interested as such because my experiences are very limited compared to the panel out here. But I thank for this opportunity, and I hope my limited experiences will be of value to people who are attending this webinar today. I want to very much with the history which Dr. Moik has already mentioned. Two, three things I would like to highlight with webinar. One is our view of conservation and conservation science. Second would be how we embed evidence in our conservation activities through citizen science, and two or three examples of my experiences in citizen science working in the state of Kerala. As has been mentioned, I just recently passed out from University of Cambridge. It has really opened my eyes on the whole ideas, limitations of conservation, how we practice conservation in different landscapes all around the world. Next slide, please. Yes. So, when we talk about conservation landscapes, many times what we feel, especially in countries like India, is the idea of inclusive conservation. And how do we go about taking up inclusive conservation? Obviously, in a sense, things like India, wherein foresters or wildlife or scientists want to not increase conservation. But how do we ensure that the inclusive conservation we take up is beneficial to people who are actually practicing or experiencing conservation outcomes in the world? So this is this idea of giving direction and rethinking how we take up conservation. If you look at the new global biodiversity framework concept, wherein local communities would also be taking care of their areas which they have been protected. So this is like how we take up conservation. So in this sense, I think the whole idea of conservation has become really necessitated idea of how do we bring about science for policy and rigor in our activities. Obviously, it cannot be science-led because there are so many other things where it's not taking up our policy and rigor. But how do we ensure that science is for policy, take up space, more space in our policy and rigor, and then out of that, then who benefits from our conservation and who pays from the conservation outcome. So the person who gets the benefit from conservation may not be the one who bears the brunt of conservation, or the person who bears the brunt of conservation outcome may not benefit from conservation. So how do we analyze our conservation outcomes and ensure that people who benefit from conservation also pay from more conservation activities? Or it's not that the people who pay more conservation outcomes do not get any benefit out of it. So in a sense, one of the important points that really come out is how do we make conservation leaders? So as the person has mentioned, all the people we have mentioned are basically conservation leaders in their own right. So as conservation leaders, as a people who practice conservation or citizen science or as scientists, how do we make use of this conservation tool and
So your voice is not audible, sir. Properly,
Okay.
it's not audible.
Okay. Hello. Is it better now?
Yes, sir.
It is audible at our end. It's correct.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you so much. So I just wanted to go on. Few things I feel are very important in everyday evidence in cognition science. One is how to make use of citizen science to monitor domestic species. One of the things I found increasingly difficult now is the lack of interest shown by everyone in monitoring common species. Say, for example, like a common monkey, a rhesus macaque, for example, which is like creating I mean lots of conservation issues, especially in North India. But we do not have enough people who are actually taking up the study of such species because maybe it might not be a flagship species, or it may not be something that might really interest scientists, or it may not really interest other people. So how do you make use of different science to monitor common species? Second thing is how do you monitor RAD species? Obviously, I think many of us are interested. I think lots of research has done, and I think even through different science. And another area which I feel citizen science can help us is through human wildlife conflict mitigation. Here in Kerala, we have already started monitoring so-called problematic wildlife. Say, for example, a bachelor herd of elephant birds, has come out of the forest and run into the forest and into the farmlands. So how do we make use of different science to monitor wildlife conflict issues, inform local people, and ensure that there are win-win ideas. And obviously, one of the important things is how do we monitor ecosystem conservation, landscape, and long term, and how do we embed conservation science in this regard. Next slide, please.
Just one.
Yeah. So just two or three examples from field. One is the breakdown which we have been taking up in the state of Kerala. It has been very, very successful. And I was fortunate enough to be part of the breakdown. And two breakdowns we have been happening right now so far. And we have gotten exemplary inputs from various different scientists. As I mentioned, like people who are not of just scientific background, but people who are in private sector, people who are doing their own conservation science practices in their own areas. This background has really helped us in monitoring the presence or absence of birds, especially in things like Agala, in things like State Valley. Also, we have also been taking up lots of activities in monitoring the rest of fauna. Say, for example, the dragonflies, the butterflies. Especially in the last 2 years of studying activities, but in Kerala, we have been able to monitor how it has impacted rest of fauna like, say, dragonflies, and how this may have, proximate effect on the presence and, biodiversity of landscape like Silent Valley. I mentioned multiple flagship species. Again, in Silent Valley, for example, the landscape macaque is a flagship species. We've been able to get lots of data, even from tour guides, who are like taking tourists into the park. One of the things we are doing is we have asked them to take pictures and videos, especially of the LCM, because it's such a flagship species. And through the videos and photographs, we've been able to monitor much of LCM movements, especially through the herds, which have, started coming down to the ground and, to move from one country to the other. We've also been able to monitor like road hills, if there's any. We've also been able to monitor the other lesser fauna, which are mostly like noticed in many of the monitoring activities which we take up. Last but not least is thinking about a topic that I've already mentioned. I guess what it has lots of scope, and I really wish institutions like the ZSI to take up this activity on how we can impact citizen science and human wildlife conflict monitoring to ensure that win-win ideas are getting point out. I personally, to conclude, I would say citizen science is having lots of potential, and here in country like India, we are not alien to the concept. States like China, we have been really trying to expand, our knowledge in our idea and wisdom, from gathering knowledge from all all the people who are very, very interested and passionate about wild and biodiversity conservation. And personally, we say that we are always pretty much always open to such ideas. We think the kind that we've been trying to bring in people who are really, really passionate about issue conservation. In the end, I think it's how do we prioritize our action. We take this conservation prize of making people accountable, but otherwise getting biodiversity data, which will help us in long-term planning of conservation of our conservation landscape. So last but not least, I thank ZSI Pune for giving me this opportunity. I hope I'm audible. If there's any things that you'd like to get back to me, anyone is free to get back to me by email or anything. I hope the conversation activities we take up to eventually make such a scenario. And thank you all for this opportunity and this all of you are very warm wildlife conservation. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We can take 2 or 3 questions. If any questions are there, please. Sir actually was requesting to have a discussion type of session. So if anybody want to ask anything, sir can reply. Sir can answer that. I think it was a very wonderful talk, so no questions are there. So we will move to the next speaker. The next speaker is Dr. R.M. Sharma. Dr. R.M. Sharma has obtained PhD on taxonomy of ball midges from Marathwada University. He has described more than 50 new species of ball midges from Maharashtra, Karnataka, Andaman Islands, Haryana and Tamil Nadu, and few species of eriophyid mites from Andaman Islands, a new genus and a few species of freshwater crabs from Odisha, Kerala and Maharashtra. He has more than 300 papers to his credit. He has studied status of endangered species like Tibetan wild ash or kiang, Himalayan mammoth in cold desert of Ladakh, and Indian edible nest swiftlet in Western Ghat, West Coast and Island. He has evaluated several PhD theses, and also he has written several semi-scientific articles in the vernacular languages like Hindi and Marathi. So I welcome you, sir. It's over to you.
Thank you so much. At the very outset, I thank profusely Dr. Banerjee, Dr. Tripathi, Dr. Kalawate for having invited me for such a beautiful webinar. In fact, I was wondering when I received the invitation and the topic assigned to me, but then I realized that this is the love and affection shown to me by my parent organization, wherefrom I am still drawing my bread and butter. So thank you so much, Dr. Tripathi, Dr. Kalawate and Dr. Banerjee. And it was really very great pleasure to listen to Dr. Balucha and Mr. Samuel and all others. So by now actually the participants must have got and feel that this webinar is all about conservation and wildlife and everything. But friends, now the role of ZSI, who is the organizer of this webinar, we should emphasize that the role of ZSI has been very, very positive in conservation of wildlife, because maybe that our scientists are not actually practically standing in the forest and working out their the conservation strategies. But as every organization has got a back office, so to some extent actually ZSI does that back office job. It means that I'll explain how the back office works and how the back office data generated is useful for the frontline managers. So with this little background, I'll just proceed further. Before I forget, my sincere appreciation goes to Dr. Talmale, Dr. Sameer, Dr. Vasant Kumar of WRC for having updated my knowledge on the subject assigned to me. Because till 2013, till I was in job, I had some data of the contributions of the WRC. But after that, actually, I was updated by these people, and I really thank them with my whole heart. Thank you so much. Now, let us go through a little some historical background, because actually, as we say that we feel proud that India is very rich in biological diversity. That is because actually it's a unique country. Our biogeographical location, diversified climatic conditions, enormous eco and geodiversity. Based on all this, the Zoological Survey of India has set up its all regional centers in such a strategic places such that the documentation of the faunal elements becomes easy for compiling the faunal diversity of our country. It is not possible from conducting surveys from Calcutta, our headquarters, every now and then. So these regional centers play a great role in compiling the data, identifying, classifying, and everything. So the WRC was one of its first created regional centers way back in 1959. Now it's had already turned 60. Don't think it is a 60 means senior citizen, has become a senior citizen. In fact, actually, with the vigor with which the young scientists posted there are working, so we should don't go by the 60 age of the center. I mean, I'm proud of it. I'm proud to say that they are bringing out Lawrence. Next, please. Yes, the center jurisdiction is whole of Maharashtra state, Goa, and few districts of Karnataka. Then adjacent Dadra, Nagar Haveli, and Union territories are also under the working area of this center. Next, please. Next. Yeah. So, in fact, actually, many participants may not know that what ZSI does for these citizen science or the public awareness programs, what we normally conduct. I'll just go through some primary objectives, because these all objectives will tell you that what exactly ZSI's role is there in not only biodiversity studies but the conservation studies also. We basically are engaged in exploration, survey, inventorying and monitoring of biodiversity. Then taxonomic studies is our core area. Then periodic review of the status of threatened and endemic species, preparation of fauna protected areas, wetlands and states, bioecological studies on selected important communities or species, then preparation of databases for the recorded species. Then we maintain national zoological collections for future studies or for generations coming in future. Training, capacity building and human resource development is our another motto. And faunal identification, advisory services and library services are also our few primary objectives. Create public awareness on regional fauna through National Institute Museum, and every regional center has its own museum for depicting the regional fauna and educating the local people there. Next, please. Well, actually, we all the while talk of biodiversity, and another term which comes into the talk of people is taxonomy. And this term has been hated by many because they think that it is very, very complex and a very drab science. But friends, if you want to know the biodiversity of the biological diversity, you should have the knowledge of taxonomy. Without taxonomy, no biodiversity studies can be completed. So taxonomy is basically the science of classifying, identifying and documenting organisms and their diversity. It is a key branch, it's a basic branch of biological science needed to identify species and to describe an unknown species. To determine what is lost, we must have some idea of what is available at any point of time, can be achieved through the knowledge of taxonomy. Every nation, as we do have the data on our natural resources and biotic assets, so every nation should have it. That is important because it is critical to human sustainability. As you know that actually we are, for our livelihood, we are all dependent on flora and fauna. All different species of flora and fauna we have been for ages we are consuming, and in future also we go on consuming them. So we should know what are those different biological assets are there. Then Zoological Survey of India, together with its regional centers, is mandated to conduct taxonomical studies. Next, please. Yeah, if you study taxonomy, actually you are covering lots of biological aspects of the different branches of biological science. First and foremost is biological diversity can be studied with the knowledge of taxonomy. The management of environmental programs involving sustainable utilization and conservation of faunal wealth. Pest and parasitic management, parasite management. This is very, very important because in our agriculture there are different types of pests and there are parasites which are naturally controlling the pests. So the knowledge of taxonomy can only solve many problems involved in complexity of biological control programs. Then pollution management and advisory services and quarantine is very, very must for conducting the quarantine studies because many unwanted species get into our country that can also be stopped at the quarantine centers, and that can be done only with the knowledge of taxonomy, that which species is beneficial or which species is detrimental has to be decided then and there itself. So therefore, in my view of course, taxonomy is complementary and not the contradictory to the experimental, applied or molecular biology. But these are all the tools. Well, now coming to the major topic which was assigned today, the major contributions of the center towards the conservation of wildlife. Friends, survey and inventorization of faunal resources is the first and foremost requirement to generate baseline data on genetic and species level. Their macro and micro habitat and ecosystem diversity. The regional database, which is created by the regional centers, thus generated, helps in developing a national database on biodiversity, which in turn facilitates compilation of information on historical pattern of faunal wealth. It also lends hand in developing models for conservation strategies of keystone species, flagship species, endemic and threatened fauna. Scientists at WRC have been painstakingly engaged in exploring, classifying, naming, describing and documenting animal diversity from the jurisdiction since its inception. Studies of the baseline data resulted into the following major contributions which are helpful in wildlife conservation strategies by State Forest Department and managers in preparing their plans. Next please. Well, now we'll start with the fauna of India, which is the ultimate volume of the particular group. Whatever knowledge till it is prepared is generated through regional fauna or regional study. The Fauna of India series. By now, actually, we have a lot of fauna of India been published by the department. But from WRC, actually, we started with this was the first fauna of India published from WRC. That was all of spiders, different families of spiders or the arachnids, as they are popularly known. Next, please. Yes, in the same series, we have on scorpions, another fauna, and another family of spiders. Next, please. Well, this was, we should say that this is the synthesis of our 60 years existence of WRC here in Pune. In 2012, we have published the state fauna. Now the fauna of India, as the name indicates, it is for the country, and state fauna that pertains to the studies conducted within the state, and the faunal diversity or the faunal information or the faunal profiling has been done for the state is through state fauna cities. So Maharashtra, we have published in two parts, one on vertebrates, another on invertebrates. Well, these two volumes enumerate roughly 5,640 species. Next, please. So likewise, fauna of Karnataka was also contributed from WRC. Goa state fauna was also prepared by WRC scientists, which it has got more than 1,000 species incorporated in that volume. Next, please. Well, now the protected areas. This is another series which has been started long time back, wherein actually we conduct studies in protected areas like national parks, wildlife sanctuaries, and wetlands, etc. So under this, actually, we have already completed Melghat Tiger Reserve, Madova and Andhari Tiger Reserve. Both these protected areas are in Vidarbha region of Maharashtra. Then another protected area for Maharashtra we have studied and documented are Chandoli National Park, Pench National Park, and Sanjay Gandhi National Park. Here, of course, while talking of Sanjay Gandhi National Park, I should remember Mr. Naresh Chaturvedi, late Mr. Naresh Chaturvedi, who was from Bombay Naturalist Society. This indicates that actually ZSI and Bombay Naturalist has been working hand in hand, because even Naresh Chaturvedi has contributed one chapter authored by myself, Naresh Chaturvedi, in Sanjay Gandhi National Park on butterflies. So all these, next please. Another protected area series contains Bhima Shankar Wildlife Sanctuary, Lonar Wildlife Sanctuary, Vansar Wildlife Sanctuary, and Radhanagari Wildlife Sanctuary. Next please. Well, under wetland series, we have already documented two wetlands within our jurisdiction. One is actually Nath Sagar or Jayapadi wetland, which is near Aurangabad, which is famous for Ajanta and Ellora caves. Just to give you an idea of location of that wetland. And another wetland is Ujjini wetland, which is more than 100 kilometers away from Pune itself. Next please. Well, status survey of endangered species, this is a unique concept, because unless we holistically study any endangered species, its status, its population density, etc., nothing can be done for its conservation. So under this series, actually, this center has conducted two such cases. One is Indian edible nest swiftlet from Western Ghats, West Coast, and islands in Arabian Sea. I'm happy to say that I was a part of this study. The study resulted in inclusion of the family of edible nest swiftlets in the Schedule of Indian Wildlife Protection Act. So this is certainly credit goes to WRC for getting it included in the Wildlife Protection Act. Then another species was studied that is a wheat-tailed bat, Rowton's wheat-tailed bat. This species is wave-dwelling and is extremely rare. This species is data deficient owing to the scarcity of records having restricted distribution in only southern western India, that is Karnataka, and Jaintia Hills. Recently, it has been reported from Jaintia Hills in eastern Meghalaya. This species is also protected under law. Next please. Oh, these two species, these are the document, the cover page of the document. Next please. Well, this I have deliberately included because this study was conducted by the scientists of WRC and some foreign scientists and one gentleman from headquarters also. These two species of macaque, one is rhesus and another is bonnet. The boundaries of these two macaque species was studied way back in 1981, but this study still stands good but needs revisit. So this kind of studies are also very, very important. Next, please. Well, This WRC has been collaborating with other centers also of ZSI and bringing out the fauna of those particular areas which was studied jointly by different regional centers. One was Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. In this, actually, the WRC, then Chennai Center, and Calicut centers were involved. The fauna of Ermikulam National Park, this is located in Kerala, extreme end of Kerala, that is near Annamudi Hills. I'm happy that I was also part of it and I was a key collector for faunal elements from this Ermikulam National Park. Next, please. So other publications are also very, very important and they were also contributed by the scientists of this center. The threatened mammals, the validation of threatened mammals is a very prestigious document of the Zoological Survey of India. There's another is Atlas of Coronata. One of the authors I could see from the participant, Dr. Subramaniam. Good morning, Dr. Subramaniam. So he is also one of the authors. This was collaboratively completed document by WRC scientists and Calicut Center and Chennai Center. So these are the some collaborative activities of the center. Next, please. These are occasional papers brought out by our WRC scientists. Next, please. Well, this is whatever collection we are holding in WRC of crabs. For last 60 years, we have accumulated huge collection, and Dr. Samir and of course myself were involved in actually documenting the complete collection, and that has gave us the complete picture of freshwater crabs in the state. And this another document all about owl diet is very important because this actually document contains how to identify the diet of owl species. I mean through pellet. I mean the authors have studied everything whatever owls actually take as their food and identifying what are different insects and other animals eaten by the owl. Next. Well, I should say this is a great contribution from WRC is we have till today we have contributed about 69 different species which are totally new to science. They have never been described earlier. I mean, the 5 new genera of freshwater crabs is a really very, very incredible. Then one new subfamily and one new genus of frog. They are actually brought to light by WRC scientists. I mean, this is just a list of different groups that show that the different professionals of scientists actually working on different animal groups of their choice and their specialty, their expertise. So these are the different groups which are listed here. So any participant who is interested in any of the groups, they can contact our scientists posted here. They'll be forthcoming to guide you, or you can collect for them and get them identified from our scientists. Next. Yes, identification advisory services is the core task assigned to board of ZSI and Western Regional Center also. We have been actually identifying for researchers, teaching community, and students whosoever approaches us for the identification. Another job normally done by the centers of ZSI and especially in particular WRC, we get lots of confiscated wildlife animal skins, body parts that we receive for identification from State Forest Department and other enforcement agencies. So identification reports submitted by our scientists help these agencies in prosecution of or punishing culprits involved in illegal trade. On an average, center receives about 20 samples for identification annually. Next, please. Yes, this is another activity of scientific resources here, posted here. Apart from in-house periodicals and publications, scientists of the center have been consistently bringing out their scientific results in national and international journals of review. till date, the number of such publications is substantial. And I have avoided to put the number. You can imagine from the voluminous documents we have brought out and the n number of, I mean, there's a huge number of scientific publications coming out from WRC. Next, please. Well, you'll be happy to know that the WRC is a recognized center for executing PhD program by Savitribai Phule University in Pune. Till now, number of PhD candidates were awarded degrees while working under the guidance of recognized scientists of the center as PhD guides. Next, please. Well, we have regional museum here, which depicts more than 500 specimens of different regional fauna, including crustaceans, arachnids, insects, mollusks, and so on and so forth. The purpose of such museum is to generate public awareness towards biodiversity and its conservation. All the important events we celebrate at the center, like World Environment Day, Biodiversity Day, Wildlife Week, as we are already celebrating today. So likewise, actually, the center conducts or celebrates different important events throughout the year. Next. Yes, trainings and courses conducted. We have been conducting such courses like collection, preservation, and identification of animals. We have been doing it for a number of times, especially for teaching community from schools and colleges. I remember that recently Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change sponsored training was conducted on Green Skill Development Program. This was meant for science graduate or a postgraduate student to develop barefoot taxonomies to utilize their skill in rapid surveys and identification. As you know that getting the specialized scientist is very difficult, but we can very well get always some skilled people for actually helping scientists to gather data, or some preliminary identification can be done by the such skilled graduates and postgraduates. Next. Well, the center is also involved in a lot of outreach programs. Very recently, just to show you some pictures, Krishithon in 2019 was conducted at Nasik, and our scientists were involved or rather engaged in exhibiting our faunal wealth as well as our documents to the farming community, students, and even common public also. Now you can see the photographs are evident, they are indicative of how many people were actually gathered to see the Krishithon put up by WRC Center. Next, please. Yes, this center has been participating in various events. So, next, please. So, thank you so much. This is all about the contributions of WRC. And once again, I thank the organizers for having me invited. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for informing the audience about the contribution of WRC, the role of WRC in wildlife conservation, and the role of taxonomy in agriculture, the basic science, the taxonomy, and the applied science, agriculture. So the role of basic science in the applied science. Then the forum is open for discussion. We will take 1 or 2 questions.
Sir, this is Subramanian. Thank you.
Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Very nice to see you.
Yes. Sir, I also thank you for giving a very nice history of WRC Pune, because it was really a journey through the time, and I think being a veteran in WRC, and you are the best person to tell about all aspects of the history, complete history. But I would very much appreciate if you could throw some light on how WRC Pune was moved from inside city to now Akurdi. Akurdi is also city, but I think that would be very interesting.
In fact, actually, we were housed initially in 2 two different located rental buildings, and then moved into the third one because we had to vacate one. It was really, I mean, unfortunate for us having stayed here in Pune for 60 years, and we got delayed rather the land for having our own building. But anyway, that is, I mean, as you said, this was a history. We should forget that, and whatever we have today is, I should say, it's better, not good. I mean, not very good, but still, I mean, we can carry out our activities certainly with added advantage of our instruments on molecular biology tools and all. I mean, I am happy to say that I was there when that started. I mean, I accumulated all those instruments, inaugurated that lab, and then superannuated.
But I remember our journey to customs, Mumbai customs.
Yeah. You were the witness.
Yes.
I mean, you know that how tense we were.
Yes, sir.
Good. I'm happy to see you, Dr. Tripathi, again after a long gap.
Yes.
Sir, Dr. Subramaniam, in fact, we are closer to Mumbai and, than Pune. So we are fortunate that we are, I went from Pune and closer to Mumbai. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Welcome, Dr. Tripathi, you are welcome to Pune.
Thank you. With your blessing and your support,
Hope we'll meet physically.
Yes, sir. Definitely, sir. Coming this week next time.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
So let us move to the next session. So our next speaker is Dr. Khoth. Dr. Rahul Khoth is an Assistant Director, Bombay Natural History Society. He is currently working as Assistant Director with DNHS, a postgraduate from Mumbai University, specializing in entomology, and he joined BNHS in 2009. His diverse research interests include insect taxonomy, museum management, biological preservation, citizen science, urban ecology, long-term ecological research, bird hazards, and safety projects for the defense and civil aviation sector. He is currently heading the Natural History Collection Department, which houses more than 1.38 lakh specimens of mammals, birds, and invertebrates. He is also actively involved in BNHS projects ranging from biodiversity monitoring to ecology. He has been involved in 24 research projects as a member or principal investigator during the last 24 years. He is a fellow of the American Alliance of Museums and was awarded the Museum Connect Award USA in 2014. He is the author of numerous national and international research papers, including the description of new insect species. His research publications have appeared in international peer-reviewed journals like PLOS ONE, Zootaxa, Journal of Bombay National History Society, Science Direct, Indian Birds, etc. He is a scientific reviewer for the Journal of BNHS. He regularly delivers popular lectures on Indian biodiversity to the students visiting BNHS and writes popular articles in magazines and print media. We welcome you, sir. Now the forum is open for you.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Thank you. Yeah. So first and most, I would like to thank you, the Western Research Center of ZSI, for inviting me for this talk. I also like to extend my thanks to GF from ZSI, Dr. Sharma is there, Dr. Aparna, Dr. all my colleagues from ZSI, other colleagues from ZSI. Today's my topic is basically I'm going to give you some insights from a project which is very close to my heart. It's a citizen science project, and we'll give you how simple citizen science projects, involvement of youth or local people can give extraordinary results, and the results are in the form of action on, in the conservation of crop. So next slide, please. So as all the previous experts explained about the citizen science, I'd like to emphasize a couple of slides on the basics of citizen science. It's basically a scientific research conducted previous century. first previous one. Yeah. So it's basically a research conducted in a whole of part by amateur or non-professional scientists. Basically, they are also scientists because they are involved in research activities. This particular term, citizen science, is also known by various other terms. It could be crowd science, crowd sources science, civic monitoring, volunteer monitoring, network science, participatory monitoring, or research. So, as Dr. A.D. Parucha also said that yes, these science is there since long in India, but now we are seeing more structured form of these field science. Next one. So basically, the first structured so-called citizen science program would be the other one. This was word count. It was started in 1900, and it's the longest running citizen science program still after 100, 21, 22 years was running. Years like this. This term basically got entered into dictionary in 2014, and in India, if you see, the Migrant Watch was the or is the first so-called structured form of citizen science. Next year. So basically, what the advantage of citizen science, or why we should opt more and more to these kind of technological advances. Basically, scientists have limitations, or as we all know, we have limitations of time, human resources, money. That's most important criteria. And our research, from doing a field research to publication, takes whole lot of time. Sometimes a good research paper even takes years to get published. But because of technological advances nowadays, programs like citizen science not only collect observations on ground, but instantly it publishes somewhere online, which is accessible to everyone. So it is a very, very time efficient technology, what we can say, which is a need of an hour, where we are currently living in a world where habitat destruction and climate change are the threats, and we really don't know how many species we are going to save. And if you see the current extinction rate also, some time back it was at least what all models were saying was 75 species per day is the extinction rate of this planet. So during such catastrophic time, some technological advances in time are definitely going to help us in saving many crucial species and habitats. Next one. Of course, every program, every technology may have limitations. The citizen science program also may have some limitations, and each and everyone who is involved in a citizen science, maybe it is as a volunteer who is actually gathering the data, or a back officer or a researcher, we all know there are limitations. And all these limitations are making it better day by day because we are overcoming all the challenges. Okay, so it could be, I have just mentioned or maybe said a couple of things only. It could be very, very, what we can say, a focused kind of thing, like e-mammal, e-bird, or it could be astronomy or something like that. So what happens, there are very few people who are interested in that kind of detail or that particular subject. So one thing is that the participation may be low. Volunteer recruitment and retention, because we have to advertise our program again and again, and we have to let people know that this kind of program is there and you are going to immensely contribute if you join. So many a times people love to join these programs, but because of various what we can say, various reasons, maybe time, maybe the interest drops later on. And of course retention. So sometimes they continue, sometimes they leave, and of course retention rate is low. So that is again something very, very limited. It's one of the limitations that all the people working in the citizen science programs should know all these things. Because what happens is we carry out, we start an activity and then we get disappointed because there is no participant, there is no data gathering and all. Financial support, of course, is the most interesting, most crucial thing because citizen science nowadays needs a lot of technological IT infrastructure and all. You need substantial finances to sustain these kind of programs. Data quality, data availability, of course, scientists will agree with me that many a times the data which we get through these kind of programs may not have that particular quality when a particular scientist collects it personally with a trained scientist with a standard technology and also reliability because you have to monitor the data, you have to see what are the anomalies of your outcome, you have to curate all this data. And of course, data ownership because who owns the data basically, the manager who runs the program, the contributor. So all these things are there and we all will come to all particular challenges every time. Next one. These are the examples currently successful citizen science programs running in India. I'm sorry if I missed any because there are a lot of new areas, new people, new interesting ideas are coming out. But Common Goal Monitoring Program, Biodiver Count, Cellular Bird Count, Asian Water Bird Census, E-Mammal India, E-Birds, Marine Life of Mumbai, Hornbill Watch India, Butterflies of India, Indian Biodiversity Atlas, Indian Biodiversity Portal, and so on. So there are so many interesting things are there, and I hope it will cater everywhere because each and everyone may not be interested in everything, but whatever you are interested in, just look up on the Google and you will find there is a program awaiting your participation. Next. So I'd just like to take a case study with my program in our project. I'll just give you some how it works and what are my insights and my learnings in this particular program. Next. So e-mammal basically again, in e-mammal we work with kids of 8th and 9th standards as the school kids, and we train them to deploy camera traps around their school or around their within their villages or around their habitats. And through the data which they generate, when we through this camera trap, we use to document animal population sizes, activity patterns, and habitat needs, and so on. So basically, it's a large-scale program currently running in many countries, and there's another aspect, one more byproduct you can say, because the e-mammal platform is linked with each and every school. Kids also come to know about different cultures, different interesting things about different regions, different countries, and so on. Next. So currently there are 110 projects, 32 countries are involved, and there are 1,950 species through almost now 10 lakh detections, I would say, because this is maybe our 6-month-old data. You can see this program is spread across most of the countries, and people are being very interested in next week. Now, how it works? There are 3 tiers. One is school students. They actually do. These are the primary audience in this program. They actually do the fieldwork. They actually do the data gathering and uploading. Teachers, this is the pillars of this thing because each and every teacher is responsible for monitoring, providing help, conducting other related activities. For example, in schools which are involved in e-mammal. Apart from camera tracking, we also do one of big trainings, painting competitions, basic competitions, nature walks, and so on. And the scientist free audience where we actually do the overall monitoring, we provide all the technological help, data verification, and analysis. Next. So now this is in the second stage. The first stage was funded by the American Alliance of Museums. There were 3 partners, India, from India Universities, North Carolina Museum of Natural Sciences from North Carolina, USA, and Paleontological Museum of Mexico. Held I would be great to inform you that this particular award now due to respect with that particular year, there are more than 70 applications from all over the world, from which R was very unique and it cleared everything and got substantial funding. The second phase was in India was basically funded by the ICC Bank. We just collaborated with the CIBC NGO, which is the and we work with schools in restaurants and hospitals. So in the second phase, first phase was we only involved 3 schools because it was France country program, so we decided to have 3 schools in India. But in the second phase, we involved more schools, 20 schools, more than 200 kids directly got involved in this project. We could capture 25 mammal species and it's currently available in 70 species. So basically how it works. So even during the selection of schools, we did a quick analysis of the entire school which we are interested, and we selected schools basically from different habitats because we are eager to know how the animal component, the mammal composition differs in different habitat, and also how it responds to the population pressure. So we selected from different habitat and of course from where the population was different. So we could get that particular technology. It starts in basically with an introductory program. We call all schools which are interested, and we take a whole day seminar of theirs and we introduce to each and every bank and methods of this program. And next we reach to particular schools and we give hands-on training. Most of the schools are from rural areas where there is no connectivity, there is no electricity. The first and most initial fear of mine was how these kids are going to work with these kind of technology. Because these camera drops are high-end camera drops with sensors ranging from heat sensor to motion sensors. And even these kids have not hadn't even handled a mobile phone and how they are going to do that. But the young generations are very quick to learn the things. And I'm very happy to tell you that now if you go to any particular school, they can deploy a camera from different trainings and they can select the data. So this is how we do the next level after initial workshop. We go to each and every school and we give them a handful of hands-on training where our practice we get involved with them. We try to answer each and every query of them. Next one. And of course, we let students to run this program. Though there are teachers and scientists involved, but after this initial training and everything, we just sit and relax sit back and relax because we don't want to be in a situation where teachers are restricting everything to where you have to record the camera, don't touch this thing and everything. So to avoid that kind of thing, to let their imagination, let their inner scientists work, we ask them to play with all these instruments. Doesn't matter whether it's going to break down or something will happen, nothing, we ask them to just deploy it, you just use it, you open it again and again, you see all the functions and everything. And mind you, after when the initial hesitations fades away, kids grasp all these technologies very quickly. This particular photograph is from the Wada area of Anapalika, which is India. Next one. Now, also, before we want to have the clear picture of how particular projects are going to affect or impact the schools or the students or their behavior. Now, for that we do something known as pre-project evaluation, where we give them a questionnaire, plus we do activities like same thing. Now, for example, a simple activity like draw an animal. So, you know, kids start drawing animals, and sometimes the animals are not even from their own background. Like they will draw maybe giraffe, or maybe lion, or maybe kangaroo, or something like that. So this is how we cause their initial participation at initial levels. Next. Then these kids, when once trained and everything is done, then we give them a monthly activity that they have to choose a particular area that they feel that there are animals, or there could be animals, and they have to go there and they have to display all these things. And again, the students do it themselves. Teachers are there to help and see everything is as per the protocol. We give the protocol and have to fill up a form where minimum bare minimum information is required. This information, location information, detection distance and all. So this is when each and every kid they work in batches. So we provide 3 camera trap, 1 laptop, 1 internet connection, login into the example database, and then they do all this by their own. Now, this is how it looks. You know, when they get most excited, I think after the first month, when we ask them to deploy a camera and wait for a month. If the camera may have a memory card of 42 GB, it can store thousands of images because we have the low megapixel. And this is the time when they get most amazed that yes, all these things are there around their background, and these pictures are captured by their effort. Now here I have chosen a couple of pictures, 7, 8 pictures. This is a set of those 6 pictures. If you see, the camera trap is deployed at one particular location, and that particular location, that particular camera is capturing all these animals from one location. Okay, from whiteboard to dog to hole to somewhere to villagers to the grazers and all. So this is where they start to understand how wildlife or how animals are dwelling in their background. They are sharing the same road which is taken by maybe kids, maybe villagers, maybe their parents, maybe by other people, and the same road is again used by animals. Again, animals appear at different times, day and night. That's it. So again, you can see this particular sequence is basically from the central India. So you can see again, a forest department vehicle is traveling, leopard is going, a tiger at day and night. So this black and white tiger, you can see a night picture. That's a very interesting story. One of the sequences is there where at night, it's a night where tiger is approaching the camera and it comes very close to camera, it sniffs the camera and realizes that there is something. Because all these cameras are very, very silent. We are not using white light, we are using infrared light to minimum disturbance. So that is why you can see all the black and white photos are with infrared technology. At night, that is our black and white. Whereas in the daylight, it can capture the color photos. So this particular, after seeing that particular sequence of thing from Nagpur, he approached me and he said, Dada, I just learned how animals, animals do also have a sense. After seeing all these 5-6 images, he said that, okay, there was a camera, he came, he investigated everything, went away. So now I'm trying to understanding how they must be thinking. So this was enlightenment for me also. Like, okay, if a particular photograph, if a particular photo sequence can change the mindset of a kid, then I think the project is well done, I would say. Next. Again, these are the some of all these pictures are taken by kids some, their background, from their villages, from their school campus or in the vicinity. Okay. So all these varieties of things are there. Next one. So after doing this, after doing a year, we spent a year in school, and of course we continue, but after completion of each year, we again do a post-project evaluation, again with these with the questionnaire survey and the painting competition. And I'll show you the results of question and some of the questions. The painting competition is something very, very amazing. Now, at the beginning, I told you that kids tend to draw animals with the imagination of which they like, and it could be an exotic animal. But after doing all these things, after seeing all these animals, now in the second half, in the post-project evaluation, you'll see maximum 95% of the animals pictures drawn are from their vicinity. So this is how he draws. Okay, there is a difference in their thinking. Now they are more thinking about their environment, the animals very around them. Next. So I'm just comparing a couple of questions only. So this is how we structure the question here. That how well do you understand the scientific protocol? And there are two responses. One is pre and one is post. And the lower one is from India. And you can definitely see the post-project responses are more like positive. They are more now in India. We can predict. You can see it like that. Indian kids after doing this kind of programs now they are better understanding the scientific protocols better. Okay. Yes. So these are some of the achievements and takeaways from any citizen science program. Okay, so this can change their aptitude towards wildlife. We are currently working in 20 schools of